Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew coming at you. Here are 7 more things normal in Sweden that would terrify most Americans. Let's get to number 1. If you come to Sweden, one thing you have to try is the pizza here. They have lots of great pizza. I never had kebab pizza before. That was interesting. There's a lot of different flavors. It's not exactly the same as traditional American pizza, but it's still pretty good. But one thing that's going to shock you, that shocked me, is that when you get the pizza, it's not already sliced. And that's because Sweden is a very expensive country and they can't afford to pay the pizza cutter guy. I don't know. Actually, if you ask them, they will cut the pizza. It still doesn't make sense to me why they do this. But yeah, you don't get your pizza cut. I guess most Swedes prefer using a fork and knife and maybe cutting the pizza themselves. Yes, you can get it done, but it is kind of a strange thing when you go ahead and get it, something that you're not used to, and it just feels so un-American not to get my pizza sliced beforehand. Number 2 has to be parental leave for men. That's right, America's kind of lacking in the whole parental leave market because we don't really give enough parental leave to women, but so much is also given to the men here. Men get parental leave here, so it is not a strange sight to see men moving baby strollers around. There's been sports athletes and others that have taken time off when they've had a small child and they've gotten criticism for it. Man up, get back to work. It's kind of a really strange attitude to have because I have a feeling that if you talk to most older men that are on their deathbed, they're getting ready to die, and you ask them, hey, if you had the choice to spend more time with your kids, would you take it or to make more money? They would probably take the time with their kids because that time is priceless, right? It's just something that's interesting, but I think when you look at it from the outside, that's something that wouldn't make sense to a lot of Americans. We don't really see that as a given or a necessary thing, which is kind of interesting. Even recently, Joe Rogan talked about this, and the truth is, I just think that it's a good idea to get parental leave. I'd rather people stay home with their kids because, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that are angry in the United States right now. We gotta do things to make people a little less angry. It's a good thing all the way around, and it's something that I think that we should have in America. Number 3, and this is something that would maybe terrify you at first, but if you walk by a lot of like nurseries here in Sweden where small children stay, like any type of childcare, it is not unnormal to see strollers outside and babies sleeping outside. See, a lot of babies go ahead and get fresh air, and it can be times when it's a little bit colder. Now, I'm not saying it's snowing and freezing outside and there's kids outside, but it can be a little bit of a cool fall day, for example, or a little bit close to winter. You will see kids or babies in strollers sitting outside, getting some fresh air, and that's because most people believe in Scandinavia how important it is to get fresh air. If you live here in the wintertime, this is something that would totally terrify most Americans, though, because Americans would look at this like, oh my gosh, how can you leave a child outside? It's like, well, this is Europe. It's pretty safe. Kids are being taken care of and watched, and it's okay to leave a kid outside. That's because Scandinavians realize how important and how healthy you need to be to get the sunlight. You have to really actively work at it in the wintertime here because seasonal depression is something that you go through even if you can get as much sun as you can. And I think that's one of the reasons that the children get time outside. It's also kind of a philosophy, I would say, in Sweden that they really have a strong connection with nature, and it's really important to believe that you need to do outdoor activities. So much so that I feel like it's something I didn't experience being an American, but living in Sweden, every time the weather's nice, you got to go outside. If you don't go outside and take advantage of it, you're really paying for it next winter. That's something I can definitely say. Number 4 has to be eating crayfish. Yes, there's very small regions such as like Louisiana and New Orleans where maybe you would eat crawfish. Call it crawfish in America, not crayfish. But it is something that's much more normal in Sweden, so much so that in August, pretty much everybody goes to a crayfish party. Now, this is a place where you drink a lot of schnapps. There's a way to eat the crayfish, and to me as an American, like the first time I did it, I kind of felt, I view a crayfish as a little bit of a bottom feeder fish, not something that I would normally eat, not something that I find appetizing right away. And even when I eat it every year, it's not something that I'm looking forward to and loving so much. But it's interesting because it's not that far away from like lobster and crab, which I absolutely love. But it's something that you start to develop a taste for. But I'm telling you, it's something most Americans aren't going to want to do. And trust me, if you're an American coming here for the first time, you might want to have a couple of those schnapps before eating this thing. But anyways, it's definitely something worth trying. Number 5 has to be the queuing system. In Sweden, they don't like to stand in lines like we do as Americans. See, they do everything like the DMV. This means that you take a number and you wait till your number is called. There might be situations where you're traveling. Let's say you go to a pharmacy and you want to go up and talk to the person in line, and you have to pull a number and wait your turn. And although this is a very efficient way to do it, part of the problem is it reminds us in America of the DMV, which is like where we get our driver's license, and that is never a fun experience in America, and it always takes a long time. So it just kind of brings back all those negative emotions. And outside of that, just not knowing it, it puts you in a lot of frustrating situations. I can't tell you. My first like 6 months here, I made the mistake like 2 or 3 times. I learned very quickly, but it's something that's still a little bit of a culture shock every time I'm here. And I think it would terrify most Americans. Number 6 has to be, first, our video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. Invest in yourself and your personal growth. I first learned of Skillshare through my Sambo, who got really into sketching and watercoloring. I watched her go from being an amateur to a pro in a very short amount of time. So Skillshare has been used in our household for over 2 years. Have a specific skill you're trying to learn? Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography and illustration to graphic design, freelancing, and more, you can find the classes that will match your goals and interests. I just finished Charles Carter's Adobe Premiere for Beginners, Editing Efficiency Plus Getting Started. What I love about this is, although I've been using Adobe Premiere for a couple years, there were so many things I picked up that I'm just more efficient at. And it just makes the YouTube video editing process much smoother, much better. They're running a special offer through my channel. The first 1,000 people to use the link or my code will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring my video. Passive aggressiveness, or angry notes. See, if you are here visiting or living in Sweden and you screw up, someone's going to let you know about it. But they're not going to say it to your face. I feel like Americans, we're much more like vocal and we'll have confrontation. But passive aggressiveness, some of the things I hate about it as an American is there's like no way to answer back, right? So you'll get this angry note, especially if you screw up something with laundry, you will get an angry note. And this angry note will tell you everything you did. They'll be very, very upset. And it's written in the most passive-aggressive way because Swedes don't like confrontation. But it can be terrifying as an American because you might want to answer or just have that confrontational moment, get it out of the way. Because a lot of times when I have a confrontational moment, unless I lose it, I'm able to find some common ground with the other person and figure it out. Now, Americans finding common ground right now is kind of something that's not going on or doing such a good job. But at the time, it is possible. Hopefully we can do it again. But yes, it's something you gotta deal with here. It would terrify most Americans because that passive aggressiveness, it just stings. I can't explain it. It stings to me to not be able to answer back. But Swedes being Swedes, they don't want to actually offend you to their face. They don't want to do it to your face. And maybe they think this is the best way to give you that confrontation by avoiding it basically and just saying what they think. But it's something that is terrifying here. You know, if someone doesn't like you, they'll go to their authority person right away. They'll go right to their boss. They won't address you personally. It's something that you just got to deal with if you live in Sweden. And yes, it is terrifying to most Americans. Number 7 has to be kids taking public transportation by themselves. Yes, in a lot of cities, there isn't like school buses. So like in the States, we have like a school bus, which only kids ride the bus. They hop on the bus, they go to work. But if you live in like a major city in Sweden and you live far enough away from your school, you're going to get what's called a bus card. Elementary school level kids, which would be like our equivalent of elementary school kids, let's say 4th graders, 5th graders, it wouldn't be strange for them to ride a bus. And in America, they would look at you like it's child abuse. Like, how could you do this? How could you leave a kid? And I think in America, we have so much sensationalism on television talking about like horrible things happening that a lot of people get worried and stressed having their kids do the same. I don't think many parents would let their 4th grader travel alone in New York City to go to the bus. I could be wrong. You can let me know below. But I feel like someone would call on you. Someone would report you. But here in Sweden and most of Europe, that's just normal. And in a weird way, I think about this because in America, you can drive when you're 16. And that's when I usually really felt like I had a lot of independence. But the crazy thing is, I start to think that if you're a kid and you're like middle school level and even like, imagine being like, for me, being like 12 years old or something, to be able to just like take a bus and go somewhere and do something, in a weird way, I feel like that's a lot of independence that you don't get to experience in America because you don't have a car when you're a kid. Your parents got to drive you everywhere. Maybe you can ride your bike. So although it would terrify most Americans and they would look at you strange, I think in a weird way, it's a big win for kids that grow up in Europe having that ability to travel. So this was my list, my part 3. If you guys like this, I would love if you smash that like button. If you would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because more content's coming. And feel free to put a comment below. Tell me what I missed. It's always fun to hear what you guys say. A lot of times I get ideas for future videos. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hej då!